morning, Sir
You
David.
are
How are
amazing.
you?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. I
Awesome.
have a couple of questions because this past week at the Oscars 2022, we saw Will Smith get up, slap Chris Rock. I was curious from your perspective, what were one, two, three reactions or responses from your experience, please?
So I'm going to tell my story. So when I got up the morning, I saw somebody sent me a text. Donna, do you think this is real? And I watched it, and I didn't have a response to it, to be honest with you. But then you keep seeing all these different reasons of what this guy was going through, why he hit someone. You know what? He has his reasons. Somehow he got triggered for some unknown reason. So after all of this, I decided to just go do a little bit of research and read up about his story of how he grew up in an abusive home, right? And how he felt and wasn't able to help his mom, right? So this instance now, I guess it could be his wife. Don't know. He's the only person at this point who be able to tell what was going on within him, why he got up, walked on stage, hit him, went back to sit down. People are blaming his wife. No, he has to take responsibility. You know, hitting person is wrong no matter how much you get triggered, because he had about 5 seconds to say, you know, shit, what am I doing? He's back, let me go sit down. But he got up, went up, did what he did, and sat back down and partied after that. The thing about it is, Dave, is we don't talk about trauma that our men go through, no matter what nationality or color or race. It's never discussed. And he has his journey, he has his trauma, he has his story, and to see that everybody's pointing and at him and doing this, yeah, he was wrong, but obviously he has some dealt trauma that he needs to work on.
Thank you, Donna. I think I really appreciate your perspective. You've been doing so much work in relationships, assisting primarily women in their journey of dealing with self-image, of trauma, of relationship with themselves and with others. You've now been doing more with men and women, and you've been incredibly caring and compassionate in holding space to share their story, yet also perhaps interrupting them and bringing them back into making progress, bringing compassion, forgiveness into their own self journey. So I did have another quick question on black crime. That's what the angle that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar brought out and wrote a piece to Will, but also to men in the journey. And that we have that 5 seconds that you mentioned to make a choice. And sometimes if we're triggered, we're going to go right to fight. Sometimes when we're triggered, we'll go to flight. And actually some of the work behind Chris's work is Chris Rock was saying he was abused as a child. So he went into freeze. So you have fight, flight, or freeze. Yet I wanted to get your word on black crime and perhaps the way that this can be used to have conversations so that men and women, children, and the elderly can have a greater appreciation of what goes on in our internal processing.
You see, that's the thing too, this black on black crime, that's like really huge on my radar, because I've seen, especially the young, like they have no regard for life, and I was funny enough, one of my clients, I told one of my clients to write a story of his past and how his past is affecting him. And what I loved about how he wrote his story was he wrote it as it was a book, but that's not how I wanted it. But I appreciated how he wrote it. Like, it was really like I'm just reading a book. And one of the things, because he also grew up in an abusive home, seeing his dad abusing his mom, and he wrote it like that. When he went on the streets, he found his family. Although they're not true family, but they stood up for him.
Absolutely. They had his back.
They had his back. So even if he got into trouble or they got into trouble and he was a part of the group, they would not rat on him. So to that's camaraderie, that's brotherhood. And so this is the thing. We have separated the men in our household. Women have been running things for so long, and they can be pushing these things with the masculine energy, and because they're showing this masculine energy, but forget about the fathers and these kids. I believe that boys need their dad. They do need their dad, or a male figure, not necessarily the sperm donor, but a male figure. And if you can't find that in the home, they're going to go outside and find it. So now when you're all into this same age group, who somebody can't say stop, it's a quick pull, jab, pull, shot, and that's it. No remorse. So you're wondering, where's the love? And it's not the mother's fault either. But at the same time, I think the whole universe has forgotten about love and compassion, and we're not healing anymore. And I don't find the men are standing up enough for our youth. They're not coming forward, and this was one of the things that the young man, my client, talked about, the camaraderie of the boys and the men outside, that they're always having their back and showing them love, and they're never short of anything. Mind you, probably not short of anything at home either, but love.
The idea that you had one of your clients, a young man, to write. That's again a fantastic therapy. It's to have the ability to communicate and to not be shut down for what they're thinking or feeling or experiencing, to be encouraged to have that as perhaps a movie script, to have it as a short film script, to be able to express it. So that's congratulations. And that might be something that you might go off to the government and see if there's a creative arts program that could be funded, because the work that you're doing in encouraging people to communicate, particularly people of color, because that's been an area that you've been so compassionate for. And there are special issues that men of color are experiencing. And so this is a topic that I've had some response from some countries, because I did go out and I've done a couple of videos now about this compassionate leadership versus this toxic masculinity. There's also a toxic femininity. And these are topics that are not readily talked about. And I have some people saying, why are you even bothering? And I go, well, I guess I'm bothering because this is relevant in elderly care. This is relevant in parenting. This is relevant in communicating and healing, especially the traumas. The traumas are becoming so more acknowledged and in some ways appreciated. And one of the healing modalities is to have a constructive conversation about it, a trust circle.
Definitely a trust circle. But this is the thing, people do not know how to deliver messages anymore. You talk about the toxic mothers, and it's true. You're like your father. You're better than your father. You're da 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 da. And guess what? These kids are going to be taking on the persona of the father, because I've seen relationship where dads are good dads, but the mothers are saying something else. You know what I mean? And it's just a mess. And you talk about trauma because we talk about intergenerational trauma as well. So it's coming down the bloodline, from the slavery, from the beating, for defending yourself. It's there, but it has to start with healing. And it's not going to stop until healing begins, by construing, even if you're going to criticize someone, but say I shouldn't say criticize, but say things in a loving way, and don't point fingers, because I'm telling you, West Indians are good to be pointing fingers and saying, shut up when I'm speaking to you, and do not want to hear, or would say, do what I say. Do what I say.
Not as I do.
Exactly, right? What makes your way right and mine is wrong. Like, we don't have an ear to listen to our children. And I remember in my early years of marriage and having my kids, I ruled with an iron fist. I didn't beat my kids, but I ruled with an iron fist. Do what I say. But that was coming from my ancestors. That's how my parents, that's how I grew up. And that's how my mother grew up. We didn't know any better. But the minute I stopped, or we stopped, and recognized that, oh my God, children, little humans have voices too. They hurt too.
A lot of wisdom too. Like I've loved the role that I've been shared, and treat your child like your greatest teacher. What a shift in perspective.
Trust me.
And because they're such beautiful mirrors, and they're going to mirror you back.
They are.
So There's a lot of wisdom there, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know we wanted to make this a little bit spontaneous, and we could probably go on for hours, because this is something that I think could be into some of the healing circles that we've talked about. Because if we spoke and we invited people to share from Will's perspective, from Chris's perspective, from Jada's perspective, and then even go into what about Willow's perspective or Jaden's perspective. This is where you really get into some awareness that one action can have such a ripple effect. And I know that you're a person that uses that metaphor as that pebble of kindness and compassion and love can also have incredible healing effects. So thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Let's have one last little word of wisdom from Donna Savage on the experience, on what do you feel you would love to invite people to take away from the experience at the Oscars.
Don't be judgmental. You cannot be judgmental because you're not on the, you're not with him. So we cannot judge persons, and, we just heal. We have to just look at things differently, and we can't just be pointing our finger and saying, if I was. No, you're not him. You weren't in his shoes. So you have to stop being judgmental would be my end goal. Don't be judgmental.
Thank you, Donna. Lots of love.